everybody, it's Lori. Welcome to my studio. I'm glad you stopped by. I am going to do another painting today similar to the one I did last time, and it's just a different colors, different size of the painting, and I'm just kind of playing around with this technique. It's something new for me obviously, and I'm having fun with it though. I I'm not where I'd like to be with it, but I think they're coming out beautiful anyway. The end picture of this one is beautiful. It's not as sparkly as I'd like to see it on camera. However, you think you're going to appreciate it when it's done. So hang out to the end and you'll see the final pictures. And we'll have some fun with that today. Again, as usual, I will post the colors that I used down in the video so that you can see or you can screenshot the first part of the video where I actually show you the paint. And it's just paint and water. I sprayed the paint on the canvas so that it would move around a little bit more and have more of a watercolory look on the background here. And I did spritz the paintbrush as well because again I wanted it just to be smooth and watercolor looking, different tones of the paint, diluted down and not diluted down as much all over the canvas. I am painting the sides with this background color. I have found I really like the way that looks, even though it's more of a transparent kind of a look. That's okay. It flows well with the paintings. At least that's my opinion. If you're going to try something like this, which I hope you do, I'd love to see them too if you do. So tag me in on them if you can. I'd appreciate that because I'm curious to see what other ideas other painters have. And in the meantime, just sit back, get a cup of something you like to drink, and enjoy the painting. And if you're into the conversation, we're going to talk about self care today, and how important it is and different ways to go about it, even in a busy schedule. And if you're not into that, well, just turn this off, turn the sound off, and watch the video. I'm not sure if I told you guys before, but my master's or my main degree in from college is in life coaching and spiritual coaching. It's I love it. I really enjoy speaking that way and to people and helping people out. It's been something that I've been passionate about for a long time. I've always wanted to do this. And I'm going to talk today to you guys about self care. It's not exactly the same way I would do it in a one on one coaching session, obviously, but self care is, I mean, it's so super important. It's an essential in this world today. If we don't take care of ourselves, then we are no good to anybody else. I had a hard time this week for a few days getting into that meditation mode because the stress just was tying me in knots and I didn't couldn't even tell until I tried to get into meditation, and it's like I couldn't do it. And I've been meditating for years, and it's usually pretty easy for me to get in there unless I'm really super stressed out. Um, with everything going on in the world, I think we can all easily get super stressed out. And so I wanted to really focus on different ways to do this self-care stuff today. Um, Last week we talked about the heart brain coherence meditation, and I talked to you about how to do that and to really connect your heart where all of the main energy of your body is, and how your heart should be ruling our brains. Our hearts should be ruling everything. We should be following our heart because that's where we hear that inner voice of what we want to create in the world and what, the love that we feel for things instead of the brain where we that's where our fear sits more than anything. That's our human ego part of us instead of our inner soul part of us. Um, they all both work together. No, don't get me wrong, but when the brain controls everything, that's when the stress begins. And being human, obviously, that's going to happen to us. There's just no getting around that. But we need to find a balance for ourselves so that we can have a more peaceful and happy life and be more peaceful and happy and loving towards those people around us, whether um, you have children, which is mainly super important to be that peaceful, loving person because they're going to get the stress out at school and all too. So they need to have that home base just as much as we do as adults to be our peaceful place and not bring that stress into the home too. I don't know. That's just the way I feel about how things are right now. Always, really, but especially now because there's just so much going on in the world. And, if you have the TV on, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's going to be a completely different story depending on what you're listening to. If you're listening to network news or if you're listening to, I don't know, YouTube news or YouTube podcasts or whatever you're listening to. I like to research something if I think it's really far out there, or if I think it's bizarre, or if I just don't get it, or I do a lot of research for my news, and I don't know, that keeps me a little more centered, and I can kind of feel it in my heart when I get to my meditations and say, okay, does this feel legitimate to me? Does this person feel legitimate to me? How do I feel when I meet this person, when I hear this person, or when I meet or hear these ideas that people have for what's going on in the world. Um, it's just you got to really I really like to center myself in my heart and do that. So when I couldn't get there, this is where I'm going with this. When I couldn't get there this week, it's concerning, and that happens often, obviously, because the world is that way and we are all human, but there are ways that you can get out of it and get center, back to the center of yourself. And that's with self care. Now, that may mean a different thing to all of you. There's meditation, of course, which is so important. And sometimes when you can't get into it in a normal way by just sitting quietly and breathing, which is, how we usually will get into meditation, that's the traditional way of doing it. You just take deep, slow breaths and slow your body down. And as you slow the body down, the cortisol slows down, which is the chemical that's released from the brain when you're under stress or you're in fear. Um, it's that fight or flight thing that we are born internally with. Do we want to, fight whatever the danger is, or are we going to run away from it, fight or flight? Um, I think most of us have heard about that. If you haven't, then it's really just that simple. That's all it is. But, that's going to be all calmed with the chemicals in your body just by the slow breathing. But sometimes that's still not enough because you may have gotten too far into the stress zone that day or whatever. So you may need to do some other things. So, other forms of meditation that we have talked about here is painting. That's why I can't really do a good job with talking and painting at the same time. Because when I'm painting, I am in the zone. I am in a meditation zone. It takes me into my world of right now, the world of right now. So I don't worry about the past, don't worry about the future. I'm just concentrating on what I'm doing right this moment in my paint and in my work with my canvas and my brushes or my fingers or whatever else I'm working with. Um, a cup of paint that I'm going to pour on the canvas, whatever it might be. Just kind of focus in on that and let the creativity flow. And if I can, and I stop for a minute to remember, I can take some deep breaths during that too. Like when I'm sitting back and just looking at the painting and considering, where I want to go with it next. What is it what is it that it needs? Does it need more color or whatever? I can calmly do that by just taking deep breaths and let it come from my soul and my creative side. And that is, I don't know, that's how I paint. And that's a really great meditation. Sometimes it means, for me, it means sitting in a hot bath with some Epsom salts and maybe even a little baking soda to soften my skin and a drop or two of lavender essential oils. I like the Young Living oils myself because they're pure and natural. And anyway, I'm not going to turn into a commercial here, but that's my favorite. Or doTERRA, or something that's quality like that. You can really notice the difference, especially with the lavender, I think, than if you're getting it for a couple dollars out of the grocery store. And anyway, whatever it means to you is cool, is good, whatever scent you like. But lavender is actually a scent that will um, calm you. I even use it for my dog when she gets into the car because she gets a little bit jumpy in the car. She likes it, I think, but she's jumping from one window to the next and it calms her down just a little bit. Use it on the baby's foot, the little sole of the baby. Maybe dilute it down with a little bit of oil, like even an organic um, olive oil, a good quality organic olive oil. You can dilute it down in that. The other night, I actually was playing in my garden and I just pinched off a leaf of my lavender plant and I could smell it. I was just smelling it on my hands and I could smell it all through my shower. It didn't even go away really at the end of the shower completely. I kept getting whiffs of it. It's so strong coming out of the leaves, but that's the real lavender oil. Anyway, so that's another way that I like to relax and self care. Going for a massage, if you can squeeze that in, if you can, find a few extra dollars for yourself to go for a massage. Um, it's just that is an amazing thing because most massage therapists have been trained in holistic healing and spiritual meditation and that type of thing too. So they try and make the whole experience gearing around that, and they can feel in your muscles, where you have the tightness and where you might be holding on to something that you need to release. I know I have come to tears during a massage if something's getting released that is really major. And, the massage therapists, they get that. They appreciate that. They aren't going to, it's okay. You don't have to feel funny about it just so that you're aware. Um, it's pretty cool how that works with them. Again, you want to have a quality massage therapist, but most of them are out there in the spas. I've been to a few different ones and I've never actually run across anybody myself personally. But all of these things that are self care are raising your own vibration, and anything else that you can think of that makes you feel happy. They're raising your own vibration so that you can have an easier time of relaxing and calming and sending the love out into the planet, the world, and to the other people around you. Um, so yeah, it's pretty important to do. If you, what other ideas do you have? What do you do to do self care? I'd really love to hear and leave it in the messages below if you would, because there's a lot of people that may not also find the suggestions that I have made to be useful, but they might find your ideas useful. You know, um, sitting around with my dog, I love to just sit and cuddle with her. That to me is just, I mean, dog is God spelled backwards. So it's just they're pretty special. Our pets. I had cats too, and my son has our cats now, and they are just as special as any dog. And I know my other son has cats too. My daughter, she's got dogs at her house. They grew up without any pets in the house because their dad was allergic. But, now they all have pets in their home, and it's just, it's a cool thing to have. If you don't have a pet, go out and maybe sit in nature and watch the birds or listen to the birds. Um, in August, where I live, I can just lay in bed at night and listen to the crickets. That is cool too, just listening to the crickets and focusing on that sound. It's really awesome. I love it. Um, anyway, that's where I'm going with this, and I really feel like it's important so that we can help to bring about what we want in our world. And you know, my mom and I were talking the other day. She came to visit for the weekend, and we were discussing these kinds of things too. Um, oh my gosh, I completely forgot where I was going with that. I'm looking at the painting and I'm seeing the gold go on there, and it looks kind of odd when I started it, but it really flowed in there really nicely and just brightened everything up. That's the shine that I wish you could see better. You can see it here though, can't you? Anyway, um, yeah, my mom is staying with my other sister right now. She was with me for a while. She goes back and forth. We're about an hour apart where we live, my sister and I. And my sister's dog is actually got um, kidney failure, and she's older, and she's not doing very well right now. But they're doing doggy dialysis at home. I don't know if any of you know what about that, but that's anyway, neither here nor there. It's a pretty big deal for them and for all of us. We just love Rhiannon, which is the dog, and it's sad to see her fading. But anyway, they came for a visit, took mom to a doctor down here, or her doctor was down here where I live, and we had a lot of good conversations about a lot of this stuff. And I really forgot why I was going to bring that up. But anyway, there was some other things I was thinking about before I got on here to record this too, with our conversations over the weekend. And um, we were talking about some of the crazy things that are going on in the world, and how she had not heard. She watches a lot of network news, and I don't. So we sharing together what we're hearing on the news is kind of an interesting thing to do. And one of the things that I found so bizarre, the more bizarre they are, the more the more it's like possibly going to be real anymore. It's just the craziest thing ever. Um, I mentioned to her that I had heard that they're they're talking about different government people, the president, and has mentioned it, and different scientists, I guess. What it doesn't make sense to me that scientists would agree with this, but I'm not a scientist. But anyway, the thought is that they want to protect the earth from global warming, so they want to block some of the sunlight that comes to the planet. I'm like, say what? Block the sunlight. And that's what mom said too. She said, that's impossible. That's not real. I said, you wouldn't think it would be, but look it up. And she did. And she says, oh my gosh, there are people all over the place talking about this. And I said, yeah, it's crazy. She says, but how are they going to do it? And people, believe it or not, one of the things that they are talking about doing is fluorocarbons. Putting fluorocarbons up in our atmosphere in order to, um, you know, dull the sunshine that's coming through so that the planet isn't as hot. Now, back in the 70s, I'm old, so I remember this. We used to have aerosol everything, deodorant, hairspray, and they all had fluorocarbons, and that's how it got out of the can. It couldn't come out of the can without these fluorocarbons. So they discovered this hole in the ozone layer, and they were convinced that at that time that the fluorocarbons put the hole in the ozone layer, which was heating up the earth and causing everybody to get sunburn and skin cancer, because the ozone layer is what was protecting us from the harmful rays of the sun. And I don't know if that's still what they're thinking, but it doesn't make any sense to me. They banned fluorocarbons in the 70s, so they came out with different ways to make aerosols at that time. And now they're talking about putting fluorocarbons up in the atmosphere? Huh. I'm confused by that. I am no scientist, but I love science. So I kind of learn as much as I can. I'm fascinated by quantum physics, but that's another story too. But it just seems like, and I've heard on the podcast, some podcasts that I've listened to with scientists, that I follow when I listen to, want to learn more about the science of something, and they've said it too. It's like the oxygen that we breathe comes from plants, and they take in the carbon dioxide that we exhale, and they put off the oxygen that we inhale. The forests, they protect from different climate catastrophes like hurricanes and things like that. And everybody was so worried about the rainforests being depleted. So we got to plant trees. We got to plant trees. Okay, so the way that these plants and trees work is with photosynthesis. That's why they're green. It turns everything green, the photosynthesis. If I'm getting too technical, I'm sorry, but I'll slim it down a little bit. Simply said, what that means is the photosynthesis is you need sunlight. And without sunlight, the greenery isn't going to produce as much oxygen. And it's not going to grow as well. And some of it's going to die off. We all breathe oxygen. So, do we want to cool the planet down by a degree or two? Or do we want to breathe? I don't know. That seems like a really good question to me. And one of the scientists asked that question that I was listening to. Um, Not in those words, but yeah, it just, it's mind blowing. Anyway, I'm done here. The video ended. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if I've got you boggled, maybe you want to do a little research too. So, we'll talk later. See you next week. Bye.